I had stayed away from my hometown for quite some time. I was studying in the UK for 4 years, and then I started working there. I didn't get the time to go back to the US. During Christmas vacations, my dad asked me to visit the family for the holidays. I didn't have much planned, and I hadn't seen my family in 7 long years, so I thought I should return. My parents came from a well-off family. My mother was a popular business tycoon, and my siblings worked in her company. My father, on the other hand, was the mayor of the city. Their parents were wealthy too. I was the only one who had chosen a different career. I was a software engineer. I arrived on a Sunday morning, and we decided to go shopping the next day. I didn't have anything I wanted to buy, but my father was always a stubborn man. He always carried his office persona home. I didn't have the energy to argue with him as I was really jet-lagged, so I agreed. Nobody in my family had shopped for Christmas gifts except me. I too did it before only because I was visiting home after a long time. The next day, we planned to go out right after having breakfast. Dad suggested that we split, so that way we'll be able to shop faster. I went with Dad, and my 2 younger siblings wanted to go with Mom. We stopped in a jewelry store first because Dad wanted to buy something for Mom. After buying his gift, we decided to hit the mall. He had a lot of different things to buy, so we agreed to shop individually. I didn't have much to do, so I thought I'd take a little stroll and check out the shops. Just then, I spotted a beautiful green jacket. I had money, so I thought I'd treat myself. I was about to enter the shop when I bumped into someone. The water bottle I held fell, and the water spilled all over the floor. I apologized for not being careful. The woman I bumped into was wearing the same outfit as me, a red shirt and some beige trousers. The lady kept looking at my pocket. I didn't know why she did that, so I looked at hers and saw a nameplate. It was the staff uniform. "Oh, I don't work here," I said. She laughed and said that they had one of the common color combinations, so it happened a lot. She told me not to worry and that she'll get it cleaned up immediately. I didn't leave and just stood there to warn people who were coming to the store. I didn't want anyone to slip and fall. In a few minutes, the janitor arrived and cleaned the place. When I finally went inside the store, the last piece of the green jacket was already sold. There was nothing to do, so I thought I would just buy ice cream. I got a chocolate soft serve. Only an hour had passed away. I knew Dad had a lot to buy, so I didn't want to disturb him. He was terrible at decision making. He could never make up his mind about what he wanted. If by any chance I went back to him, he would make me decide for him, and if I actually made a decision, he would go on and on about the pros and cons of the product I didn't choose. It was a never-ending cycle. I was just walking with my head in the clouds when a man bumped into me. Again? I thought. It must be my unlucky day, I said to myself. A bit of my ice cream had fallen on his shoes. I apologized and asked him if he was okay. The man looked furious. Maybe it was an expensive shoe? It certainly didn't look like one. I apologized again, and he snatched the ice cream from my hand and threw it in a nearby garbage can. I was dumbfounded. I apologized. What more could I do? He was being way too rude over this. It was as if he wanted to dominate me. I had no intentions of arguing. I was tired and bored, and all I wanted to do was sleep comfortably on my bed. I told him that I would give him the cleaning fee, but he just stood there staring at me furiously. A few people were looking at us. "Why are you eating ice cream during office hours?" he asked. I was confused for a second. What office hours? Certainly not mine. I was on a leave and I didn't know this guy anyway. Then I remembered my conversation earlier with the staff. I replied, "Oh, I wasn't," when he cut me off in the middle and demanded that I clean his shoes. Excuse me?" I asked. "Didn't you understand me the first time? Get on your knees and clean my damn shoe." I had never worked in a mall before, but I was sure that no one could ask someone to do this. That's pretty derogatory. Who did he think he was? It felt like one of those scenes from some inspirational movie when the protagonist's mother, who is a janitor, is asked to clean the shoe of some rich lady in a store. I stood still and said, "No." Now, to be honest, I was a bit afraid of the man. He was a big man with muscles. I, on the other hand, was not. He towered over me. He was about 4 inches taller. In addition to that, I wasn't really good at fighting, so I knew I didn't have any chance. If he chose to punch me, I would just have to report him and he will be in prison. But I would still have my nose broken. I thought the best way would be to settle this diplomatically. I told him, "See, I understand that you're upset, but the most I can do is offer you the cleaning fee. It wasn't actually my fault, and you already know that. I was eating my ice cream and you bumped into me. Still, if the cleaning fee isn't enough, I'll just go buy you another pair of shoes, but if you keep behaving like this, I'm afraid I'm going to have to report you." I was getting too brave. The man smiled for the first time and said, "Go ahead. Let's see what the authorities you report to. I am the owner of the mall, so who are you going to report? Let me know. I'll call them for you." Ah, now it made some sense. He had asked me before why I wasn't working. I thought it was an odd thing to ask, so that's why he was mad that I was eating ice cream. Still, it was no way to behave with an employee. My train of thought broke when he demanded me again to get down on my knees and quickly clean his shoe. I simply said no, and before I could explain why, he pushed me against the bench behind me. I nearly fell down. My ankles had twisted a little, and it was a little painful. I had too much of his idiocy. "Who the hell do you think you are?" I roared. He snickered and told me that he was going to deduct the wages that I did to his property from my payment. What damages? I thought. The only thing I damaged was his cheap pair of shoes. I even offered to buy him a new one. I was sure there was no sentiment attached to the shoe since this person didn't even have a basic human decency, let alone respect for someone else's gifts. "I am not an employee," I yelled. He chuckled and said that he had seen me waiting for the janitor earlier. He said, "Why would you wait there and warn other customers of the slippery floor? And why were you chatting so comfortably with one of the staff members? You're wearing our uniform. And where's your nameplate? Did you take it off so that I can't remember you? Too bad for you, I'm good at remembering faces." Because I was a human being and had some empathy? I told him again that I wasn't an employee, and I was only waiting because I didn't want someone to fall over. He snickered and told me that he was going to fire me if I kept spewing out such stupidity. There was no way you're getting out of this. I had given up and was going to pretend to quit when I finally saw my father walking towards me. I'd almost forgotten about Dad. As soon as the owner spotted him, he sweetly said, "Oh, you are here today, Mr. X. So good to see you. Did you get what you were looking for?" The owner's voice and demeanor had changed in a blink of an eye. I felt like I didn't even know the person anymore. My father nodded and looked at me. "Oh, that's just a stupid worker. He got some ice cream on my new shoes, so I was just asking him to clean it. But you know how such poor people can be. He's trying to get out of this. If we don't teach such people discipline, they will become rebels." My father didn't quite follow what the owner was trying to say. "What happened?" he asked me. I told him that I was telling the owner that I wasn't his employee, and he was mistaking me since he saw me waiting for the janitor. Then I added how he pushed me against the bench and threatened to fire me or reduce my payment if I didn't kneel down and clean his shoes. The owner told him that I was lying. He told him that he was 100% sure that I was a worker there. Then he tried to shoo me away. My father was a stern man. He simply replied, "He's right. He doesn't work here." The owner scowled and sarcastically said that my father wasn't a good observer. "How do you know that he isn't on staff?" the owner questioned. "Because he's my son, damn it. He just came from England." The owner took a step back. His head, like a pendulum, swung back and forth as he looked at me and then my dad. When he realized his mistake, he immediately apologized and pleaded with my father to forgive him. I was the one who should have gotten the apology. I didn't. Instead, he was trying hard to impress my father. My father didn't budge, though. He only asked me to follow him. Later, the owner came to our house with a few gifts and apologized again and again. My mother, who is a very strong lady, asked him what he was apologizing for. Of course, he didn't even have a good answer because he was so out of touch with himself. I heard from my mom that he was in a constant loss and had asked for some help from her earlier. She told him that it wasn't going to happen, especially now, after she knew what kind of person he was. He asked if I would talk to my parents. Obviously, I denied. A few years later, I heard that a lot of workers just quit from the mall, and he had so many losses from the other businesses that he had to sell his property. He finally got what he deserved. My EF called a couple of days ago and demanded that my daughter's name have my maiden name. For context, I'm ethnically Filipino, but a second-gen immigrant, as I immigrated when I was 6 years old. Filipino tradition is such that the child's middle name must be the mother's maiden name. For example, my mother's maiden name is Smith. It's a fake name. Therefore, my middle name is Smith. My daughter had just graduated high school, and my parents received a picture of her diploma. When they looked at the photo, they realized that it did not have their last name / my maiden name on it. They were very upset, given that I and my husband are culturally American but ethnically Filipino. Husband's like half. We decided to give her a new name for her middle name and have her hold her father's last name. I was forced to have a hyphenated last name, even though I wanted my husband's last name. I conceded to having both names since my parents paid for my education. It's hell to deal with even to this day. EF complained and demanded that I change her name. I told her we are Americans and live in America, including my E-parents. Therefore, we will use what is culturally appropriate. He told me that he does not care about the American way and that I am turning my back on the right way, the Filipino way. My daughter is already 18 years old. I can't legally do anything regarding her name anymore. I had told him that, but he yelled and demanded that I must get it done. Not my daughter, me, and I better, or else. Personally, I have a myriad of reasons why I don't want my daughter to have my maiden name. A lot of issues such as FAFSA, schooling, and even inheritance could also be on the line if she were to change her name. Plus, she just doesn't want a different name. My daughter said no, and both my husband and I agree with her. Later that night, she called them and told them, very nicely, that she will in no way change her name. The only reason she would is if she gets married in the future. EF threw a fit on the phone, and she just ignored him and hung up. They haven't spoken to me since. I want to talk to my parents again, but if they were going to throw a fit over a name and continuously be upset, especially over a name they knew about for 18 years, then I'm just going to cut ties. I hope they get their act together. Edit. I read the comments that my title was misleading / clickbaity. I do agree, but I don't think I can change it. It was something I intentionally decided, but this issue is still currently going on at the moment. Other family members have been involved and things are getting very chaotic right now. They can demand all they want, but that doesn't mean you have to give in to them if you could. At 18, your daughter rightfully told them to kick rocks. If they want to have a hissy fit over it, then at least you won't have to listen to it since they're not speaking to you. Enjoy the silence. We have a known convicted sexual predator living in my town. He was convicted of traveling to meet a minor for sex when he was in his 30s. He's in his 40s now and still has the compulsion to sleep with teenage girls. Since he has a large home out in the middle of the countryside with no neighbors, he uses it as a way to get access to teen girls by throwing parties at his house and inviting high school girls to come over and party at his house. He gives them alcohol and weed, and of course, they go party at his house because that's what teens do. I came across a photo of a group of teen girls in his living room during one such party while the sex offender was smiling in the background with them. Since I'm a middle-aged adult and don't have any teenage kids yet, I didn't know the identities of any of the girls in the photo. So, I privately shared the photo on my Facebook account and asked any of my Facebook friends who are parents if they recognized any of the girls in the photo, and to please alert their parents. I wasn't trying to shame the teen girls or get them in trouble. I just wanted their parents to be aware that their daughters were unsupervised in the company of a very dangerous sexual predator. I wanted their parents to talk to them and explain why it is very unsafe for them to hang around the home of this man. What did some of these girls' parents do in response to this? 2 of them contacted me and cussed me out and threatened me because I had no right to share that photo of their daughter without permission. Ma'am, I shared it because I don't even know who you or your daughter are, and I wanted to help you keep your daughter safe. You should be thanking me for bringing this to your attention, not threatening me and cussing at me. That's when I discovered that these mothers were already aware that their teenage daughters had been partying it up at the home of a 41-year-old convicted sexual predator's house, and they didn't mind at all. And then I scratched the surface just a little bit and discovered why they were okay with their teenage daughters hanging out with a pedophile. Because at some point in the past, the moms had hooked up with this pedophile and considered him to be a buddy of theirs, or still had some feelings for him. So they didn't mind their teenage daughters hanging around him and possibly having sex with him too. I literally have no words for how absolutely disgusted I am. These are the same mothers who always screech about pedophiles and save the children. Edit. According to public online court records, the perp is on probation. So I just sent the photo to the probation office along with a detailed explanation. Since the parents obviously don't care about their kids enough to handle it themselves, then I'll just have to do it. So it's in the probation office hands now. I hope they bust him. Eesh, that's disgusting. Is it even legal for this dude to be hanging out with anyone under 18 unsupervised? I've got 2 high school age kids, and I can tell you that they are not going to some random 40-year-old's house party. Good lord. There is one other option. Contact local law enforcement. Chances are, if this guy is convicted of such crimes, chances are there are conditions that this could be violated. And I'm sure the authorities would be more than interested in hearing. And a picture is worth 1,000 words. Being that this is out in the country, you may want to talk to the sheriff's office in that area to keep an eye on things and make sure he's not violating any terms. Maybe looking through social media and going from there.